How is everyone doing today? Welcome back to On the Ball and welcome back to another transfer update. We've got quite a bit to get through today, so let's get straight into it. Starting off with Kvicha, Kvaratskhelia of Napoli, Corriere dello Sport, saying that Newcastle have made a stunning 82 million bid for Napoli's Georgian star from last year, a player that Spurs could have had for a measly 5 to 10 million, I think it was at the time. But look, if Newcastle can pull this off, what a signing this can be.
They're clearly trying to make waves this summer, aren't they, Newcastle? They had a failed bid for Barella. They've got Al-Ahli through the door. They're really trying to upgrade and get ready for the Champions League. And I think Kvicha would represent a really big upgrade in that position. It would be an absolutely stunning signing. That would really send a statement that they're serious about next season and serious about not even competing, getting back in the Champions League, maybe even aspirations further than that, but also like giving the Champions League a good go as well. Because someone like Kvicha, who lit Serie A alight last season with his unbelievable displays. Him and Osimhen have one of the best connections in European football right now. And that's a big transfer out at 82 million. I wonder if what Napoli will say to that, whether they'll be demanding more for their best player. But if they can pull that kind of signing, I mean, going from like Jacob Murphy and Saint-Maximin to Kvicha, that would just show the ambition they have.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. And I heard the Napoli chairman talking about Osimhen a few weeks ago, and he was saying that they would demand a minimum of around 200 million for someone like Victor Osimhen. He was the one that was getting, that he was their top goal scorer, getting a lot of goals. Kvicha, on the other hand, I kind of feel like he will go for a bit less, but will he go for 100 million less or over 100 million less? I'm not so sure. I kind of feel like in excess of 100 million is something that Kvicha will go for.
Yeah, I would have thought so, especially considering how good he was, and you don't expect him to slow down anytime soon. So I think from Newcastle's point of view, he's going to be expensive, but probably worth the money.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it will be a massive statement from Newcastle if they can pull this off. But let's see what happens in the coming days with that one. But let's move on and let's talk about Xavi Simons of PSG now, as he's just recently returned to PSG from PSV. Romano says that Xavi Simons is set to join RB Leipzig on loan after signing his 4-year contract with PSG. Deal will have no buy option. Xavi Simons is convinced that RB Leipzig is the best option for his future if he has to leave PSG. He will communicate his decision on Monday, which is today. Leipzig are ready with the loan deal with no buy option. Xavi would return to PSG in a year's time in June 2024.
Yeah, and I think there's also rumours, by the way, that PSG are going to go for Kane and offer Xavi Simons in exchange, which would be a very interesting deal from Tottenham's point of view if that was to be the case. But Romano has reiterated today that it does seem that Xavi Simons is set for Leipzig, and I think it's the perfect loan deal for him. Leipzig are known for developing young players. It's a step up from the Dutch league last season, where he absolutely smashed out the park at 20 years of age, got over 20 goals and over 10 assists. He was an absolute delight to watch. He's really starting to fulfill his potential. He's always a player that has, from a very young age, people have been talking about him, but he's now starting to really explode. I think Leipzig, a place in Germany who play attacking football, they're challenging usually at the top end of German football as well. I think it's the perfect place for him to have another year's development. And I think it's very telling that PSG don't want to put a buy option in there because they really believe in the future. And it'll be interesting if there is a deal to be done with Tottenham and Kane for Simons, if they envisage it only being a loan deal with no buy option, because I don't think Tottenham would accept those terms.
Yeah, I think he's an absolute supreme talent. You're talking about probably in the top 10 or top 15 under 21 talents in world football right now. And PSG have done smart business. They really have. They've bought him in on the cheap, rebought him in on the cheap, and they're going to let him go get some consistent playing time over in Germany. Like you say, a team that are known for nurturing youth talent. So I think this is a one that ticks the boxes all round. It's great for PSG. It's great for Leipzig, and it's going to be great for Xavi Simons himself. So I think it's a great deal all round.
Do you think PSG could keep him this year? It's great for his development, but I look at PSG team, I'm looking at it like he could get into that team.
In place of who? Where would he play exactly?
Like in the midfield, like in the number 10 position potentially. Like I'm looking at this talent, I'm like, I don't see why he can't play for PSG right now. I understand it's good for his development.
I kind of feel like if he stayed at PSG, there will be times where he wouldn't be getting consistent minutes. And I feel like him going to Germany and playing literally the majority of football next year out in Leipzig, he'll come back to PSG and he'll be a star there, in my opinion. So I think it's just a really good move all round.
Fair enough.
Next up, let's talk about Harry Maguire. Simon Stone of the BBC saying that West Ham are interested in signing Harry Maguire, but the Englishman is happy at Manchester United and he loves the club. And it was reported by Harry Maguire himself over the weekend that he will no longer be the Manchester United captain. So I guess that Man United are making the pathway for him to leave the club, but he's going to have to agree on a term. And I think if he gets past the kind of not wanting to stay at Man United anymore and accepting that he's not part of their plans anymore, I think West Ham would be a really good move for him.
I think, yeah, Ten Hag's clearly been ruthless when it comes to not stripping him of the captaincy. It's clearly something that has been overhanging Man United ever since Maguire got dropped, and people like Luke Shaw were playing ahead of him. And then it's a bit of an awkward situation where you got your club captain who can't get a look in, even ahead of a left back at centre back. Yeah. So that's a situation that can no longer continue. I think Maguire, for his own career, has to leave. I don't think Ten Hag rates him clearly, and I think that West Ham obviously got a lot of money now with the Declan Rice sale. I think it would be a good move for them. I think he's an upgrade on what they have currently at centre back, and I think he would be a really good fit for how David Moyes wants to play. Yeah, I mean, do you feel like he would still be a good fit if they carry on trying to persist with this new way of playing, which didn't really bring them too much joy last season? I think so. I think Maguire can play. I think he's quite good on the ball. I just think he struggles a lot when he's asked to play a high line and he's asked to make mark runners who are running in behind, and he can struggle with that. I think he's underrated with his ball playing ability, and I think West Ham would definitely value that, and especially West Ham as well are a team who really value set pieces, and I think he would really add to that. Fair enough. Let's talk about Dusan Vlahovic now, as Foot Mercato is saying that PSG have reached an agreement on personal terms with Vlahovic, a 5-year contract, a salary of 11 million euros a year with goals and appearances bonus in there as well. Look, hasn't happened for him for one reason or another at Juventus. But how do you feel about his move to PSG? Do you think it's the right move for him? Well, I think it remains to be seen whether it's going to happen, because it relies on Juventus striking a deal with Lukaku. Yeah. So whether that happens will depend on. I think they say Lukaku will only go to Juventus if Vlahovic moves to PSG. So I think there's a few kind of dominoes in effect. I do think it'll be a good move for PSG to get someone like Vlahovic through the door, a young striker who is a goal getter. I think he's shown in Serie A even before the Juventus move his quality. I think. Obviously, look, PSG have had some great strikers in Mbappe, Messi. It's going to be a tough at Cavani as well. It's definitely a tough act to follow. Is he at that level yet? I think he might need a year to really prove that he's at that level, to be honest. But I think in terms of quality-wise, I think he can fit in really well, PSG. I think he's the profile of player that PSG really need right now, a solid number 9, a classic number 9, which he is. I think it's a good move for PSG, but I kind of feel like Vlahovic, if he goes there, he might get stuck there for a while, and I feel like he should be going to somewhere like the Premier League. I think he should set his sights on a bit bigger than maybe the French league, but he will get paid a lot, that's for sure. He will get Champions League football, and I think he'll be a good fit there. So it depends which way you look at it, I guess. I wonder if he could have a similar impact that Cavani had when he moved there. I think so. I think so. He was an absolute fan favourite there, and I think Vlahovic will do maybe not exactly the same, but to that ilk. Let's talk about this one, which is interesting. Allan Saint-Maximin, Ben Jacob says that Al-Ahli are interested in signing Newcastle winner Allan Saint-Maximin. Do you feel like this is off the back of maybe the talk of Kvicha? Maybe once Kvicha goes to Newcastle, there'll be an option for Allan Saint-Maximin to leave? I think so. Well, we've heard about Newcastle looking for a winger the whole summer. And I think it makes sense, because I think in terms of Saint-Maximin, as much as I'm a massive fan of his and his quality, he's never really found consistency at Newcastle. Last season, so I think most of their better displays came without him in the team, to be honest. And I just think he's a player who struggles to keep fit. And I think he's a player who frustrates a lot, even though he's got boundless amounts of ability with his dribbling. And I think his end product can improve. But I think if you're Newcastle, I think if you can cash in on him, I think it's probably worth doing, in my opinion, and going for a higher level of player who's going to be a lot more effective in the final third, rather than someone who has got great attributes but can't seem to pull it all together. But at 26 years of age, do you not feel like he could still be a star in the Premier League? I don't know. I think, look, he's not old, but he's not that young either. At 26, you start to usually you start to kind of mold into the player you are. I'm not saying that he doesn't have the ability to like explode a bit. He potentially could, but it hasn't quite happened as of yet. And I'm starting to question whether he's ever going to become that like real explosive star. I think he can be a very good winger, but I don't know if he can ever hit that. Like he has the potential to be like every season 10 goal 10 assist winger, and I just don't know if he's ever going to hit that.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like he should be staying in the Premier League or even going to maybe like the Serie A or La Liga. I think he can smash it out in Europe for another 4 or 5 years at least, and I think he's got attributes that, like you say, can make him into a star. It's just about a manager maybe coming in and trying to find and getting that consistency out of him. I think he's got it in him. He just hasn't shown it. In terms of Franck Kessie, we're going to move on to him next. And Damasio saying that Juventus is set for negotiations with Barcelona to sign Franck Kessie. The idea is to have him join in the form of a loan with an option to buy. And if Juventus can pull something off like that, a loan with an option to buy, I mean, that's a great deal.
Definitely seems to have legs now, this move, considering Barcelona's other movements in midfield. So it does seem they're kind of planning for life without Kessie. So I think actually, as much as I think from Kessie's point of view, he would like to have given his Barca move more than a year, especially as it hasn't worked out too well for him. I would assume he probably doesn't want to leave, but when you're in midfield and they're bringing in other players in your position, you got to assume that something's up. So I think Juventus is probably a decent move for him, albeit they're not in Europe next season. So maybe he sees it as a challenge to get them back to the top, because Juventus, it was a weird one for them. Like, they used to be seen as a club a bit like Bayern Munich, like you just go there for an easy win, but it's not like that right now. They haven't won the league for a couple of years now. So I think it's 3 years now they haven't won the league. So you know, getting close to
Inter AC Napoli.
Yeah, so you're getting close to half a decade all of a sudden. So all of a sudden, I think that does represent a nice challenge now, going back to Juventus and trying to get them winning again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it will be a really good move for him. I think it will be a really good move for Juventus. And it's time for Franck Kessie to get his career back on track as well, because the quality of the player, I mean, just hasn't warranted what he's been through at Barcelona. I mean, he's hardly been able to get on the pitch. When he hasn't really hit the heights, no consistency there. So I think he needs to move for the good of his career as well. And I think Juventus will represent that. In terms of another Juventus player in Juan Cuadrado, Sky Italia saying that former Juventus winger Cuadrado is joining Inter Milan on a free transfer. Romano says that Inter are planning Juan Cuadrado's medical test on Tuesday. The agreement with the Colombian right back is valid until June 2024. Cuadrado wants to join Inter and he accepted immediately. I mean, this is a classic Inter Milan deal. It really is. I think Cuadrado's contract came to an end at the end of last season. And look, I thought they were going to get Perisic, but they've got Cuadrado instead.
Yeah, they love an old wing back. They've done it for years. There's people like Perisic, Ashley Young, Victor Moses, like they've just got these kind of winger fullbacks in their locker. So I think Cuadrado fits the bill completely. It's I think his time at Juventus probably come to an end. He's been there for long enough. Not to say he doesn't have much to offer, but I think Inter Milan, they'll know what to do with him a bit more than Juventus will right now. So I think it's a great move for him.
Yeah. Let's move on and let's talk about Sergio Busquets. As this is an official announcement, as Inter Miami have signed midfielder Sergio Busquets following the expiry of his contract at Barcelona. He will team up with Lionel Messi once again. Look, it's just a nice little deal for him at the end of his career. I'm sure this will probably be the last club he plays for, to be honest, but it was a funny one because the MLS tweeted out last night saying he only wins, and it was like a kind of announcement welcoming to the MLS, and it was a picture of Arbeloa. It was actually really funny.
Yeah, it shows how much they know about European football.
To be fair, they do look like each other.
Yeah, no, look, I'm not giving him a pass there. You can't just put Arbeloa up and say we're announcing Busquets. Ridiculous. But look, it looks like they're getting the old band back together over at Miami, because I think as an Jordi Alba as well, I think he's moving there potentially. Busquets is there, Messi's there. So it would be interesting to see if they get the whole team back together. They can win something. That'll be fun. But look,
they're currently bottom of the MLS or something.
Oh, there you go. So I'm sure that's going to change soon. I'm sure he'll see out the rest of his career in with less stressful circumstances for Inter Miami. So I mean, it's not like I can say it's a great move. It's just a move to see out his career. I don't think he's like going there to win any or anything. He's going there to be.
He gets to play with Messi for another couple of years. So why not?
That's reward in itself, I guess. Anyone should be able to go for Messi.
But Bex is building quite some team there. for a team that's bottom of the MLS.
Yeah, maybe he's trying to win a treble.
We'll see what happens.
Get Guardiola in next.
Yeah.
Imagine.
And let's finish off talking about Oriol Romeu, the former Southampton midfielder. Romano says that Barcelona are set to sell Romeu deal. Here we go. Agreement reached with Girona. It will include Pablo Torres loan until 2024. Medical done, and it's now time to prepare the documents in order to get it signed. Oriol will join Barcelona this week. I mean, it's a bit of a strange one to me. Like, to get rid of Franck Kessie to bring in Romeu.
Yeah, I think it's a bit odd. You if you're weighing up the two players, you'd think surely you'd rather keep Kessie, but it seems as though they're trying. Look, we know Romeu from his time at Southampton. He played for Chelsea for a bit, and I actually think Chelsea signed him from Barcelona back in the day. So I think potentially there's a link already there. So maybe they want to bring him back, and I think by and large, he has been playing pretty well for Girona over the last few seasons. So maybe they've seen potential with him in that position. I actually do think he's a bit of an underrated player. I always thought he was quite a good player at Southampton, to be honest, but I never thought a move back to Barcelona was on the cards for him. But when you think about it, he's probably a player who can fill in, be back up to a decent level, probably happy to be there. And would you rather someone like Romeu on your bench, or Kessie, who's probably kicking up a fuss, he's probably moping around, he's not happy to be on the bench, whereas Romeu has a second chance at, I think, his boyhood club, and he's maybe just happier to be there, and maybe that's a better decision.
Yeah, I can see it that way, to be honest, but like, you kind of just like don't want to downgrade in quality when you sell players, you know what I mean, with the squad, and they're kind of doing that. And Barcelona, let's be honest, they've made a few like weird decisions in the past few years. So
yeah, but he's probably going to be sixth choice. You got De Jong, Gavi, Pedri, Gundogan, and then you got Romeu. So like, he's not going to be high on the pecking order.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I guess it's nice for Romeu to go back to his boyhood club. I mean, Barcelona love doing this. They love bringing back like Barcelona boys into the squad. And here's another evidence of that. But look, that is an end to your transfer update for today. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts regarding all of these transfer rumors. Which ones do you think will happen and which ones don't you think will happen? And thank you everyone for watching today.